Hello. I started this channel in July of 2024. It's called An Empowered Mind. I'm going to explain what that means, but before I do, I want to tell you what qualifies me to talk about these things. I have a lot of education under my belt as an EMT, nurse, and doctor. I've trained as a Christian counselor and done many intensive trainings on various psychologically or spiritually related topics. But my real qualification to do these videos with credibility is that I have come from having a very unempowered mind to a much more empowered one now. I have walked the walk from broken to less broken, and that means that I know something about how to make the change. For me, more faith, and sometimes less faith, in a loving, all-knowing God has made this possible. So many people out in our world did not grow up with a sense of security and of being cherished. I know some did, and that is wonderful. But for those of us who didn't, I have good news. You have learned some things from your lack that can help you become a very compassionate and loving person. When we've hurt sometimes very much, there is a fabulous opportunity to gain insight into other people who hurt. I think that many people who go from medical school into psychiatry or people who become psychologists are people who struggle with life. Some are looking for more answers, a few may be only intellectually interested, but most, I have observed, are familiar with pain and want to help others. This is probably true for providers in all areas of mental health. I've always thought that I didn't want to merely survive a situation, but I wanted to transcend it. I wanted to become better because of it. I wanted my mind to become empowered and less vulnerable to lies. This is truly possible, if not easy. I am sure that I am not the most evolved teacher in this area, but I am one that is in it with all who strive to learn and grow. Because of that, perhaps I will be relatable to you. I hope so. I personally prefer to learn from someone who is still learning. Scripture even tells us that Jesus was learning during his walk on earth. No human has truly arrived. Now I'm going to give you a list of the traits of an empowered mind and then discuss each thought briefly. An empowered mind is teachable, determined to find victory, knows that it is human to make mistakes. And I don't mean intellectually knows it, but knows deep down inside. Knows it is okay to be vulnerable. Can distinguish between shame and guilt. Knows that God's love for them is not conditional. And again, not in our minds, but we really know that. Knows that love is the way through everything. Understands that forgiveness is not optional. Knows that experiencing pain is not the same as losing power. Appreciates that their own emotional experience is not unique and is intimately connected to thought process. Understands that judging others is foolish and costs personal peace. And lastly, the empowered mind seeks the opportunity to show and receive love. This is not meant to be a comprehensive list, but there is a lot in this list already. Let's touch on each one of these thoughts. When we are teachable, we are humble. The minute or year or age we think we have things comfortably or uncomfortably figured out is the point that we stop learning. If we're going to be alive on this earth, it only makes sense to learn to navigate life's challenges better and better. This could be the challenge of not getting angry when the keys get lost, or the challenge to find peace when we have a terminal illness. The challenges are never over, but our ability to cope with them can grow continually. At times, we may feel like rolling over and playing dead, but if our minds seek victory, we will find our way to it. This requires endurance, which may not be our favorite word, but endurance is character building, and character is a very good word. Character means moral strength and integrity. In some ways, I've been a very slow learner. Certain things that have hurt me deeply have stayed with me for too long. But that's a self-judgment, isn't it? I choose to let that go. It has taken me just the right amount of time to learn. That thought sits better in my heart. Fortunately, there isn't a timeline on growth. Consider whether or not you have some self-judgments to release. Sometimes the judgment can simply be that we will not have victory. Victory may ultimately look different from what we imagined, but an empowered mind will hold fast to the goal. Victory is an ability to handle what life has given us. Victory is peace. I won't say much about mistakes except that if our standard for living mistake-free is higher for ourselves than it is for others, we are off base in our thinking. We are never the one special case that should have always gotten it right. An empowered mind can see that, embraces errors, and moves on. Being vulnerable means being real. We don't have to share all of our pain or weakness with everyone around us, but if we don't show it to anyone, we become less approachable. Others can't share as easily with us because we have kept a silent barrier up. The problem with this is that it prevents us from getting compassion, feedback, or an inspiring word from others when we need it. It keeps us isolated and covered. It also takes energy to keep up the veneer. How can we know we are loved by our friends for all we are if we never let ourselves show? It's okay to be vulnerable when the time is right. Guilt acknowledges that we have done something wrong. Shame is a whole different thing. It is a belief that we as a being are wrong, that something is flawed and embarrassing about ourselves. Even our worst errors in judgment do not merit this feeling. This feeling is not of God. We may wish desperately that we had done this or that instead of what we did, but instead of self-condemnation, we can move forward with a teachable, humble mind. We understand that we must change our ways, but we don't discount all that we can be. We learn from our error and then look forward. This is an empowered choice. Empowerment always boils down to choices and not feelings. We can feel like dirt in the moment, but still remember that there is more to us than our error. We are still valuable. If we have truly learned, we become more valuable because we've been humbled, grown in insight and understanding, and exercised our minds to move past prior error. That's a lot of forward good movement. Pretty great. An empowered mind is also a loved mind. If we don't know in our core that we are precious and lovable, we are cut off at the knees in our walk through this life. I have found profound love in powerful scripture that could wipe away old thought patterns and refresh me with love and guidance. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about knowing a creator who can change us when we cannot. I'm talking about walking through this life accompanied by the truth of our value and the warmth of God. Knowing that love is an incredible force is one thing, but walking in that love is another. Knowledge without application is, at its best, interesting. The ability to be loving all the time will not be achieved perfectly in this earth walk, but becoming more and more loving is a reasonable goal. It is a right goal. Unloving thoughts run through everyone's mind, but we decide whether or not to entertain them or change our minds to focus on less judgment and more compassion. An empowered mind seeks to love people who aren't so lovable. In my video, Chains of Unforgiveness, I talk about why unforgiveness is not an option for the person seeking empowerment. If we hold a grudge, we are embracing judgment and hate. We are the ones who suffer. Enough said. Check out the video. No one likes pain, but experiencing pain is part of the human experience. We are not weak when we hurt. We are just going through what everyone does, in one way or another. Again, it's an opportunity to grow. We may feel weak during times of hardship, but if we will look at those same times and realize that we need God, all is not lost. For God is an infinite source of love, comfort, and power. We only get in trouble when we think we should be strong enough to power through anything alone. This is actually a weak approach because we are not inviting the support that makes us stronger. If we do manage to power through something alone, we're doing it the hard way and missing the opportunity to be vulnerable with God and others. We are missing an opportunity to have help in seeing beyond our immediate situation. The empowered mind understands that what we experience in life is not unique to us. Everyone experiences the gamut of emotion, but some to a greater extent than others. We tend to judge others quickly who do not respond the way we would, or who have trouble with a situation that we find easy to manage. Though we have similar emotions in life, we all have different strengths. We need to remember that. We don't want to be judged for our greatest weakness, so we must pass that grace forward. Judging behaviors is okay, but judging people is not something we're equipped to do. We don't have all the pieces of the story about someone else. The empowered mind distinguishes between people and actions. Lastly, the empowered mind seeks out opportunities to love and accept love freely. Barriers down. Without this flow, we have no fuel. Without this flow, our world suffers. Who could you reach out to today? We all know someone who needs a call, a card, or acknowledgement of some sort. An empowered mind makes choices that show love to others. I've said a lot here. I hope the main ideas are quite clear. An empowered mind is a beautiful thing. It is something we can all work toward. The result of effective and peaceful functioning in this life is well worth the effort. I believe this is how we touch light and become more. Join me in this quest. If you know someone who might benefit from this video, show your care and pass it forward. If you've listened to this whole video, I believe you are a seeker on a great path. It encourages me to know you are there.